The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Brad Spates with the Guide Technologies. Thank you for registering and attending our XA webinar series, part 4 of 4. We've got a very large audience that's registered, and we're just going to give another minute before we actually start with the presentation. So if you just hold tight for another 60 seconds, we'll begin. Thank you. Okay, this is Brad Spates with Guide Technologies. Thank you all for signing up and registering and attending our webinar series. I will introduce Julie Shoemaker, Senior Application Consultant for Guide Technologies. The topic today is ins and outs of features, options, and pricing in XA customer orders. Due to the size of our attendees, everybody will be on mute. So please utilize the chat function if you have questions or comments anytime during the presentation. And at the end of the presentation, I'll read those off to Julie and answer those questions for the audience. So with that, Julie Shoemaker, thank you.
Well, hello, everybody, and thank you very much, Brad. For those of you who do not know me, my name, again, is Julie Shoemaker. I'm with Guide Technologies, and I'm an application consultant with a fairly strong background in the customer service sales, CSM, COM, CRM, all those fun acronyms that we throw in for XA. Past life, I actually was a customer service person inside a manufacturing company, so features and options is near and dear to me. It is a feature that not many know about and even less utilize. So the purpose of today's webinar is really just to give those of you who are not familiar with features and options an introduction into what this is, and for those of you who maybe have dabbled in it or are using it, maybe to enlighten you on a feature within features and options you weren't aware of, or just give you a good refresher course on the basics. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. The features and options is actually a way of setting up and customizing your items within XA that allows for configuration. It's really what I like to call a poor man's configurator. There are third-party products from Infor and from outside of Infor that can do configurating for you, and they offer a lot more robust features, maybe a lot more options of ways that you can configure your items. But within XA, for what I would like to call simple, and even I've seen some customers do some pretty complex things with these, there is the ability, native in what we call vanilla XA, to do features and options on a small scale. The way that XA organizes these is as you create your features and your choices of those features when doing a customer order, it creates a number called an S number in the background. And I'll talk about that as we go through the presentation, but it essentially is a series of choices that have been made that is then converted into the ability to match a manufacturing order to those options. One of the things that I have noted here about features and options, and this is where I talk about the simplicity of what XA can do as it not being a full-scale configurator, is that it is single level. And what I mean by that is you will have feature and you will have options within those features. Those options cannot be features themselves that have further options. So it is a single level, and then that'll make a little bit more sense when we take a look at the bill of material and how you build that. But this does not offer the ability to have a feature as a feature, if you will. So again, it's a limited but pretty robust and useful way that you can choose to configure items. So let's talk a little bit about the S numbers, because the S numbers seem to be the biggest point of contention when someone is new to using features and options. We're all familiar with the idea that I have a feature and that feature is options. It's pretty straightforward. I have features that can be required and I have features that can be optional. But the idea that the system generates this S number and how many features can we have and how many options can we have? It's all really done through install tailor. There are install tailor questions in PDM and EPDM, depending on which environment you are in. And what you do in those, in the install tailor is you determine whether you want your features to be a 1 character or represented by 2 characters. The S number itself is 20 characters long. So it is a numeric, alphanumeric field that is 20 characters. Based on how you answer your install tailor question, whether you want each feature to be represented by a single character or 2 characters, that controls how many features you can have within a single part number. So you can have a maximum of 10 2-character features or a maximum of 20 1-character features or any combination therein. So you can have a mixture of 1 character and 2 characters as well. A character, a 1-character feature can have up to 35 different options. It's represented alphanumeric, so 1 through 9 and A through Z. Special characters cannot be used. So if you choose to have 1-character features because you have, let's just say you have 14 different features within this customizable product that you need to offer. So you're going to need to go with at least some 1 characters. You can have up to 35 options. A 2-character feature can have up to 1,295 different options within a single item. Quite a lot. So again, one of the things that I highly recommend when people first start using this, obviously, is start in a test system and experiment with, you have to do a lot of really good prep ahead of time to figure out what is your worst case scenario. That's actually really the first place to start when you start talking about how do we want to structure our S numbers. Find the most complex configuration you have and see what you require for that particular configuration. Everything else can be backed down. If I do not use all 10 characters, if I go with a 2-character feature and I only use, I'm sorry, not 10 characters, but if I go with the 2-character features, so I can have up to 10 features and I only choose to have 3 features, the other 7 just are represented with zeros. So I don't have to use all. It's not a requirement that I have 10 features. It's I can have up to 10. Or if I go a single, up to 20. Okay, so again, the most complex scenario is the one you want to design for. The others will just be represented by zeros when that complexity is not tapped into. The other thing that you should consider when you're looking at configuring your S numbers is the location of the 2-character features should you use a combination. So again, you should have the single characters up front and then flow into 2 characters, but based on some of your choices, you may end up with singles up front, doubles in the middle, singles at the end. You'll need to take a look at how you want to structure those. There is a really good KB out there, and I have that referenced here, 765082, that does a good job of explaining a lot of this. Some of this information is taken directly from the KB. The KB has additional information. I always highly recommend that new users review that KB. And again, go into a test system, set it up in a test system and see if the numbers come out the way you expect them to based on your install tailor questions. So for the sake of the PowerPoint slide, what I wanted to do is create a real world, quote unquote, real world, right? Unless you make widgets, in which case it really is real world. I want to create a real world example for you that walks us through as we start talking about it. Instead of using the words features and options all the time here, let's talk about what this really looks like in the system. So for the examples we're going to be going through today, we're going to be making a widget. And our widget can be purchased in red, green, or blue. and it comes in large, medium, or small. At the same time, the customer can also select to include a riser. It's an option. And this product will always have a bevel. So they will always have a color, a size, and a bevel, and optionally could have a riser. When the order is placed, customer service will enter the same item number no matter the color or size or any other specifications the customer chooses. This is the key to what features and options can offer you. It offers you a reduced number of item numbers. Instead of having to create an item number for every single possibility and selection a customer can make, features and options allows that the sellable item will always be the same base item number. At the time that customer service or inside sales is keying this order in or speaking to the customer and getting the options and that the customer would like, they are going to be entering that into the system at order entry. So I will show you that process. But the options are chosen at order entry. And then the manufacturing order is created from that customer order directly. And the bill of material represent exactly the selections that were made by the customer. So let's talk about, before we talk about how it all comes together in the end, let's talk about how it's set up. And features and options is starting to be set up at the item revision level. So when you go to start this entire creation of a new product as a features and options product, a product that will have features and options, there are several different places where this setup has to be considered. It has to be considered at the finished good, which you see here. It also has to be considered at the feature, which is your first level or your single level BOM item. And then you also have to set up the options as items. So there are 3 item revision records that are created. So let's look from the top down and start with the finished good. So when you set up your finished good, which would be an item type of a 1 or a 2, possibly a 9, but I wouldn't see that being happening to you. Item type 1 or 2, assembled or fabricated depending upon your logic that your company uses for those codes. Then the only other thing that makes this unique beyond what your company typically requires on item revision setup is that you do actually need to set then the configured item setting. This is a setting that exists that probably is either hidden from your view or ignored constantly when you're using it today, but there is an attribute called configured item, and you need to choose from that option number 2, requires configuration. Along with that, you need to choose the type of configuration, and in this case, it's an S number. If you are using a third-party configurator, then there are some other options that you can choose under type. But essentially what we're saying is that this finished good will have features in it. It requires someone to make a choice to help configure this. So these are the 2 settings that we need to set up on the finished good. Configured item requires configuration, and the type is SNO, which stands for an S number. The other 2 that I mentioned we need to set up are an item revision for the feature, and we need to set up item revision records for the options that are included within each feature. A feature is set up with an item type of F. It is not a configured item. It is simply set up with an item type of F for feature. Essentially, in the end, this works like a phantom. It will end up with a bill of material, no router, but it will never appear anywhere as far as paperwork goes. It will never appear on your shop packet. It will not appear on a pick list of any kind. The feature is the pass-through for your options. And your options are just your standard items. If it's a purchased item, it's a purchase item type. If it's a manufactured item, it's a manufactured item type. It's just the product that will be the component on the bill of material when this product is made. That is your option. Options should not have base prices set on them unless that option will have an upcharge for choosing it, in which case you would want to set up the base price as the upcharge for choosing this option. When you set up your finished good, you would set it up with the selling price, with your base selling price. That will be the beginning point, but if you choose to upcharge for certain options that are chosen, certain features that are selected, then you would set the base price simply for that upcharge. Otherwise, it's 0. And options can be required or they can be optional. In other words, in the case that we're going through, you have to choose a color, but you don't have to include a riser. So I'll show you that, but that's not set up at the item revision setup. That is actually set up in the bill of material. So now we have 3 different item revision records or item records if you're in PDM that are set up. And now we need to configure our bill of material for our finished good, our widget. So when we set the bill of material up, the single level bill of material for the finished good widget will include anything that is a requirement to make this product, not a feature, not something that is optional or choice. In the case of the example I gave, I said that the riser will always be included, right? This widget will always contain a riser. So therefore it's on the bill of material as any other component would be for a finished good that we manufacture. The other items that are added to this bill of material are going to be the features that are going to be that will include options to be chosen. The options for each feature is the bill of material for that feature. So this is a multi-level indented bill of material. When setting up your features, you add the options through the bill of material. When setting up your finished good bill of material, you add the features as the components. This is an example of a bill of material for a configured item that contains a feature. So you'll see I have a very large bill of material in the background that is indented in several different levels, but you'll see that within the blown up portion, we have a bellow feature. So we have a feature, and that feature includes one of these 3 subassembly choices: a bellow LPSS, bellow LPBECU, and a bellow special. And you can see that those particular options underneath that bellow feature themselves are subassemblies. So they have their own, based on the option I chose, there is a bill of material that will have to be created in order to produce that subassembly, assuming that they are not phantoms. So this is just redundant to what I had just said, which is that features are added as components along with any other non-optional components. When adding features to a bill of material, features are always set to a quantity per of 1. There is 1 feature per end item. Each feature or component has a feature or option code set to R for required or N for not required. This is where we determine that the feature is optional. In our case of our widget, our color and our size are required and our bevel is optional. So it's an N. So as we add the feature for those, we say whether they have to make a selection or whether we are able to skip it. In addition, you have to sequence your features. And the sequencing of your features indicates which sequence it's going to be in your S number. If I am doing a 2-character S number, where I have up to 10 features, each one is 2 characters. 01 represents the first 2 characters. 02 would be the second 2 characters. 03 would be the third 2 characters. Within the features themselves, I mentioned that there is a bill of material. This is where the options are contained. So the bill of material for a feature is essentially just a list of options. And again, those can be purchased or manufactured components. And the quantity per for your finished good is set here. So if I have a standard batch quantity of 1 and it takes if it takes one red in order to make, then I have a standard batch quantity of 1. I have a feature quantity of 1, quantity per of 1, and then I have a component quantity per of 1 in options. However, if for whatever measurement that we're making green, it takes 2 ounces of green, my feature is still a quantity per of 1 in my finished good. But if I select green, I will see that I need 2 ounces of green for the one feature for the one standard batch quantity of my widget. So again, my quantity pers based on my standard batch quantity are set at the option level, not at the feature level. That's what this is all to indicate for you. A BOM must be set up for every single feature, even if that feature is an optional feature and only has one option. For example, a riser, or I'm sorry, a bevel. If the bevel is yes or the bevel is no, then there's only one option, and either I select something or I don't select something. That would be how I would do a single selection optional feature. I could have multiple different options and still make that feature not required. But in any event, if I even have just a single option, I have to have a feature in order to choose that option. Because the quantity per is set to the quantity of the component that is needed to create the finished good, you can end up with multiple features that contain the same component but in different quantities based on selections. So this is something that I have seen from a standard point of, or from a point of creativity, if you will, that if they choose this option, they need, I don't know, they need 4 bolts. And if they choose this other option, they need 6 bolts. The quantity per could potentially change. So I have to represent that with 2 different features if I have 2 different quantity pers based on their selection. This is where things get complicated from a standpoint of how many options can you offer, how many features can you have, and how many options can you have within them. So again, laying out your most complicated and working towards building that will make sure that you're able to have all of the configurations that you need. When I'm adding options to a bill of material for a feature, there are a couple of different settings. So again, I'm going to backtrack quickly and just show you. When I'm adding the finished good features, when I'm building the finished goods bill of material and I'm adding features there, I have to make sure that I choose whether it's required or not required. But when I'm creating the bill of material for that feature, I'm adding components. At this point, I need to set up a couple of different things. The feature option code for this component needs to be set to an option. This tells the system that this is not a feature, this is an option. I have to assign that option a feature options number. These are the numbers that will appear in the S number. So this is 01, 02, 03, and if I choose 02 option, that will be what appears in my S number for my 2 characters, 02, and we'll see an example of that. And the last 2 sections are the roll-up cost factor and the planning factor. And I have a separate slide where we'll cover those, but those again are set in the component setup for the option on the features bill of material. And again, this is all things that are there today. They're probably just either ignored by your engineering team or whomever is setting up items, or they're hidden. But these fields all exist as native XA attributes. So let's talk about this last bullet point here. This is where things tend to get complicated and or undesirable for a lot of people who look at using features and options. Planning and costing percentages. The way that XA handles the idea of doing, let's just talk about cost for first because that's the more, I would say, complex of the two. When I do a cost roll up for a manufactured item, it looks at my components, takes my material this level, passes it up, and continues to roll that forward until it gets to the finished good. However, when I have something set up in which I have 3 different options that could potentially have 3 different costs to them, and I don't know which one is going to be chosen at the time of ordering, my rolled cost is not going to equal exactly what my manufactured cost will be. In order to accomplish the goal of rolling costs and using features and options, the way that XA has designed this is that there is a factor. If I have, in this example, 3 options, and I say that it is likely that a customer will purchase any one of these options 1/3 of the time, they're evenly divided. So therefore, I want the cost to be 33% option A, 33% option B, and 33% option C. That is what the cost roll-up factor does, is it takes for each individual option the percentage of cost that you have indicated here and uses that percentage to roll up to create a final material this level for this feature into this finished good. The factors can be less than 1, but they cannot be greater than 1 when they're all added together. So for this example, I have 0.33. There are 3 of them. So obviously when you add them all together, we come up with 0.99. That is acceptable. The system will allow that. It'll take 33% of the cost of each. And then that extra 0.01 will be unaccounted for, if you will. Basically, it treats it as average costing. What will happen when I sell this product and when I create the manufacturing order is I will have variances. And I would manage this fiscally through variances. This is something I highly recommend if you go forward, you stay on top of. These percentages need to be managed, they need to be reviewed for accuracy, and they need to be adjusted periodically. And what that periodic looks like, it could be monthly, based on monthly sales, it could be semi-annually or annually. You could have high moving volume products in which they're very reliable percentages, and then you could have low volume products where the options selected might come in waves of popularity of color or size or government projects that are important at the moment. So you may need to adjust your costing percentages to reflect what is being ordered more often. I have had customers do some custom programming in order to populate these fields in which they've looked at written sales report analysis, and they have done part of their month-end process to update this based on sales volumes over 18 months, 12 months, different things. So there are some creative ways that you can automate this to update somewhat based on real sales. You just have to watch for anomalies that can happen here, because if you have one order out of the blue in which an option is chosen, let's just say somebody comes in and orders, the blue color, and that's actually something that's very rarely used, but they order a large volume of it. If I look at my annual usage for this item, it may appear that the blue is ordered quite often, and it might have just been an anomaly. So you do have to account for that. If you have something automated, you have to make sure that it's a good way of averaging and sparsing out any of those. Matter of fact, I have one of the customers who's done that. They actually wrote into their programming a checkbox to opt products in and out of automatic updates. Some they manage manual, and others they have the system calculate. Those items that are low moving, they don't necessarily want a single order to negatively affect the costing through an outdated or incorrect percentage. So Again, there's a lot of conversation that can be had and things that can be done, but ultimately it acts as average costing. And this seems to be the biggest hang up I have for a lot of customers. They want the exact cost, and the only way to do the exact cost would be to build an individual item number with each and every combination. Otherwise, it's going to have to be done in some sort of average. And the planning one works exactly the same way. It's exactly the same way in the sense that if you are running an MRP program or a VP program or something where you're doing material planning and it's looking at the usage, it's going to say if I have 10 of these items out there, I expect to need 33% of each of these options. And this oftentimes as well causes some heartache for planning, because obviously if I have a single order for 10, it's unlikely that they have ordered 33% of each of the options for this particular feature. They likely have ordered 100% of the same option, but planning will not recommend that I purchase or plan for that. So features and options typically have to be manually reviewed at a much more detailed level than MRP really accounts for. It'll get you close, it'll get you an idea that there's something you need to look at, but it typically requires manual intervention to take a look at the planning. And sorry about that. So let's go over how this looks when you put this all into use. It starts off again, once the item revision and the bill of material are set up, the actual features and options going into use in a real world scenario start with entering of a customer order. So when a customer calls in, you'll build the S number, whether it be from their purchase order that they've emailed to you or whether it's over the phone, feature by feature. You'll specify which option is to be chosen, and that will build the S number, which will then become the feeding point for the manufacturing order. So, for example, in our example, the color is the first feature. Option 1 is red, option 2 is blue, and option 3 is green. The size is the second feature, and for size, we have S0 for small, M0 for medium, and L0 for large. So an S number of 01L0, 01 is red and L0 is large. And 03S0 would be a green small. So you can see that as you go down each of your features and choose an option, those then go into the appropriate location in the S number. S numbers are created at line item entry. You can add it to your template. It's actually in the defaults template from Infor automatically. Or if you don't have it in your custom template, it can be on the card. So you can enter the item, the base item number, and then when the preview opens, you can go to the general card and build it there. In either event, you don't type in the S number. What you do is you click the little arrow button, I think it says apply over it. You click that little guy there, and what he does is he launches into a selection builder. And so the builder stays in the background, and what actually appears as customer service or inside sales is keying in is these screens you see in the foreground. It will go in order. So the first card I will see, the first window I will see will be the color feature. And I will type into the option which one I choose. So for my customer who wants to do a red, I choose 01. I hit update, and it adds that to my S number builder there. That's the screen in the background. So you'll see 01 red paint has been added for feature 1. Feature 2, then it comes up next. The next window pops up, and it asks me to put in a value for feature 2. These are both required. So I have to enter something in the option. In this case, I enter L0 for large, and I hit update. The next screen I would get would be for the feature for the riser. 01 being my riser, but if I leave it blank, I've chosen not to select that the option. You'll notice that it does tell me at the top section of both of the foreground windows there, underneath the option that I fill in, the S number as it exists to this point, and then the feature code, whether it is required or whether it is optional. So inside sales will go through, this will prompt them through each feature and for them to enter in the option that has been selected. They can bypass one if it is optional and chosen not to be, and the next one will come up until they are done. And when they are all done, they will get returned to the S number builder and they will hit update. And it will return them back into their customer order. And as you can see on the example on the right, the S number will be built. In this case, we chose a red large widget with no riser. So we have 01, L0, and all the rest of the features are empty because there are no additional features that have been chosen. From here, we create this item and move along with our order entry. So the pricing. I had mentioned that if you have an option that you wish to have an upcharge for, you create that by creating a base price for that option. This is an example here where I show you that widget is my part. We are charging $100 for the widget. If you were to choose all standard options, it would be $100. However, we have an upcharge if you choose to have your widget be small body frame. So the small body frame is an additional $20. And the riser, which is an optional feature, is an additional $50 as well. So in the example here, on the left, we have a red large, no riser. And on the right, we have a red small with riser, S number builds. And you'll see the difference in the background on the CO line item pricing. The first one, the widget that is a red large, is the standard set base price of $100. However, because we've selected both of the upcharge options, the second one is $170. It is $100 plus the $20 upcharge for the size and the $50 upcharge for choosing the riser. So again, from a pricing, start with your most complex. Whittle down to what your true base price will be, and then assign base prices to the features. And if that means that the base price is actually so low you'd never actually sell it for that, and every single option has an additional price to it, that might be the way to do it. There may be no true, what I would call standard product in which you don't have any additional base prices like I do on the left. It might be that every option has some sort of additional upcharge to a minimum price to create the product. So once the customer order is entered, there is now a demand for that finished good, that what I would call generic part number, that is your finished good, your base part number. However planning is run, they see the demand, and they will create that manufacturing order directly from the customer line item. So for those of you who are not familiar with this feature, XA has this, whether this is for features and options or not. XA has the ability, and it's shown in these screenshots, to create a manufacturing order directly from a customer order line. And it builds a linkage between that customer order and that manufacturing order. It creates a manufacturing order that brings in the bill of material based on that order. And it actually builds a physical programmable link between the two orders in the system. The customer order cannot be changed unless that link is broken. So it prevents the customer order from being modified once a manufacturing order has been created. This only works for made to order items. Features and options is for make to order items. And I probably should have started with that at the very beginning. You obviously cannot have features and options for make to stock because you're going to inventory it under a single part number. A single part number. So the assumption in using features and options is I want a single part number and I make to order. I make it, I ship it out. If I inventory this scenario, I have the same part number widget, and I have two physically very different products. They're different colors, or I'm sorry, they're not different colors, they're different sizes. And one has a riser and one does not. If I put them on the shelf next to each other, both as the part number widget, I'm not going to know which one to pull when a customer orders a widget later on. The assumption is that it is for make to order items. And along with that, that also means that you do not typically plan on having return to inventory for these items. I did have one customer that walked very close down the path to doing this and then realized that they actually take products back quite a bit. And that became an issue for them. So one of the things you need to consider is your return policy on make to order items. And if you do still decide to pursue features and options, how are you going to handle that from an inventory standpoint? Because again, they all have the same base part number. And inventory is kept by part number, not by revision. So you can't use revisioning as an alternate method. Okay, so something to consider. Given that the system assumes that this is your process, it does require that you create this manufacturing order directly from the customer line item. That is the method in which it absorbs the S number. So there's 3 different ways that you can access that. I have them all on the screen here. You can go directly into the order, open it up the details, go to the line items tab, right click maintain and create MO, or you can use the maintain menu at the top. You can go to the CO line items object, locate the line item that you wish to create the manufacturing order for, and do the same thing, maintain, create MO. Or there is an object in the production area called customer demand, and you can do that from there as well. That is representing a particular line on a particular order. You can locate that line for that particular order, maintain, and create MO. Any one of those will launch you into your standard manufacturing order creation template, whatever that may be as your default. So here on the left, we're just using the default create manufacturing order. It launches that manufacturing order. It absorbs the order quantity as the quantity that was on the customer order. So if the customer ordered 5, it's going to assume that you're going to make 5. You can adjust that, what you're going to do with those extras or less thans. That's up to you, but it is adjustable from here. And you can put in your scheduled start and due dates. It will absorb the due date as the customer's line item promise date. So whatever the customer service entered in as the promise date, initially in the template, it will look at that, make that the due date, and then back up your scheduled start date based on any of your manufacturing lead times for the product. So basic XA logic is in play here. However, like any other XA logic from MRP, from VPI, it is able to be maintained and changed here. So you can push your dates around as needed. But you'll see that when you hit create and you come into the details of this manufacturing order, your component list will now reflect based on the options that were selected on the customer order. So my bill of material, my manufacturing pick list, my production order will be for a widget that is red, large body frame, and includes the bevel, which was not optional, no riser, but the bevel that's always required. So that's really the extent of it. At that point, you're going to have a manufacturing order. You're going to complete that manufacturing order as you would any other. You will ship it out, you will invoice your customer, and things will proceed as normal. That gives us about 15 minutes open left. If we do have any questions or any comments or feedback from people who may have using features and options or are looking at it. So Brad, I guess we're good to open it up and I'll answer whatever I can.
Yes, I've got one question from the chat box. Is there a way that you know of to have the user enter an item and S number with the option to use the S number builder and have it display a list of all the individual components required for that item S number combination? And then there's a second part to it. Is there an out-of-the-box way to do this outside of an order or quote as a standalone business object?
Is there a standalone business object in which you could build out an S number without creating a customer order? Not that I am aware of. That's not to say that there isn't something that could be built, a business object could be built over it, I'm sure. Those files, oh, let me think about that. So you have a bill of material I'm not sure exactly 100% if I'm understanding the question. What I can tell you is I can come into the bill of materials. So I'm in XA right now, and we'll take a look. I had this open because I anticipated there would be some questions maybe. If we come and look at the bill of material for that widget, and of course that's not what I wanted. So if I look at my widget, I can see my bill of material, my indented bill of material, which would give me all of my features and all of my available options. I'm not sure if that answers the question. If I looked at an indented BOM for the finished good, I can see all of my features, all of my available options. It doesn't, obviously in this view, I would need to modify it if I needed to see some additional information. It doesn't tell me whether the feature is optional or not, you know, if it's required or if it's not required. So I might add some additional columns here if I wanted to see some additional information. I can, right from here, do an S number builder. So I could come through and sort of model what an S number might look like. And use my simulator, my bill of materials simulation on an S number. So I don't know if that's another portion of what was being asked or not, but that is an option here. So this would tell me, you know, again, based on my requirement, so 5, I can refresh this and it'll update my required. But I do not know of an S number object. To my knowledge, one does not exist. There could be something out there. And again, I'm not a programmer, but I would pick the brain of a programmer if I wanted to, knowing that there's a file out there somewhere. You can build an object over it, but not out of the box.
That is the only question I have.
Okay.
At the risk of having chaos, I could unmute all of the lines. And if anybody's got something to ask, I'll open it up. Here we go. No, I guess I can't. Nope. Well, with that, okay, unmute all attendees. Here we go. There, it looks like everybody is unmuted at this time, although I don't hear anything, so that may not be the case either. Well, if you have any questions, please chat or send me a quick question. Otherwise, I think we'll conclude. Okay, well, thank you, Julie, very much. And thank you, all of our customers for attending. I appreciate your time and your attention today. This webinar is recorded and it will be compressed and sent out to all attendees via email. Thank you very much, and everybody have a great day.